This is Renewing Faith Radio with Pastor Jason Gold of Regeneration Calvary Chapel in Sandpoint, Idaho.
In your presence, darkness hides.
Somebody punches you, you're not going to think, oh, this is fair, and you're just going to exchange one punch at a time. We are an excessive people. And so here we see this restraint, because the restraint is serving for justice. The idea here is that you're going to pay for the crime that you commit. A life for a life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So in this, we see this restraint.
On the cross it was done.
I have pretty good patience, but I can't stand cheaters. It's not fair that I work hard on an exam and get a poor score when someone cheats and gets a good score. To me, I want to do something about it, but I know God will bring justice to that over time. In today's message, Pastor Jason says that we naturally want to seek justice for ourselves. Even when the Bible says an eye for an eye, we decide to go multiple punches for one punch. How often do you try to get justice for yourself instead of letting God handle it? Now, turn in your Bible to the book of Exodus chapter 22, as Pastor Jason continues his message, God's Civil Law.
We see this design with Adam and Eve, but yet man polluted it. And so God basically, he goes along with it in the idea of giving parameters and restriction. And here we see also that this man, if he doesn't take care of this woman by food and clothing, taking care of the children, then she would be free. Verse 12, he says, "He who strikes a man so that he dies shall surely be put to death. However, if he did not lie in wait, but God delivered him into his hand, then I will appoint for you a place where he may flee." So if a man takes another life by premeditation, premeditates, it's murder, then it's life for a life. But then he's saying, however, if this was not premeditated, then it would be like involuntary manslaughter. Then it was almost like a witness protection plan, where God would set up a place that they would be able to go and pretty much start a new life. Now you think about if our system maintained this idea of an eye for an eye, a life for a life, our crime rate would change dramatically. And it's just amazing on how our culture, the United States, has got away from biblical principles. Here in verse 14 it says, "But if a man acts with premeditation against his neighbor to kill him by treachery, you shall take him from my altar, and that he may die." So murder was a capital offense here in Israel. Verse 15, "And if he who strikes his father or his mother shall surely be put to death." I read this to my kids every night. They never hit me. But the principle here is the heart of God, how he perceives the idea of respect for your parents. Because the severity of the punishment shows that God takes authority and dignity very serious. And there's children that belittle authority all over the place in our culture. Parents belittle themselves in our culture. There's this whole movement of trying to feminize men, and men can't be men. And if you say that you got to take the lead in your home, that's racist or that is chauvinistic or whatever. And it's just anything that God has designed, the culture that is against this wants to dismantle it entirely. So here, verse 16, it says, "He who kidnaps a man and sells him, or if he is found in his hand, shall surely be put to death. You think of human trafficking. In 2012, it's estimated that 21 million people were being trafficked. And in 2022, it's estimated that 50 million kids are victims at this moment. And it's just an estimation because this is a dark underground industry. And so it's only an estimation of what we know. And you think about what is taking place, and God has an answer for it. But yet, our culture, there's no accountability for anything. And it's just grotesque. From 2017 to 2018, National Human Trafficking Hotline statistics showed, and this is 2017, 2018, showed a 25% jump in human trafficking cases. And we know that has gone up exponentially. Now, an author, Alfred Edersheim, he's an author of Old Testament history and life of the Old Testament and times of Jesus. He said that kidnapping, rebellion, and murder were virtually unheard of. Is because you do the crime, it's not necessarily you do the time, you're dead. People might say, well, that's all harsh stuff, but you know what? Society was in order, and now it's not. And now if you brought any of these things out, the pushback would just be extraordinary. If you said kidnapping, was capital punishment, somehow it would be a climate justice issue. That's just how insane they are. Verse 17, it says, "And he who curses his father or his mother shall surely be put to death." Travis, another memory verse. So why is this, you think of this, a kid disrespecting, cursing his father or his mother would be put to death. You think of what words do. Words can cause someone grave harm. I've shared this story, and I'll share it again because it fits. My cousin, he wanted to go see his son. And so he goes up to the mother of his son's apartment, and they get in a conflict, and she said to my cousin, "Go kill yourself. That's the best thing you could do." And slammed the door. And an hour or two later, he put newspaper up all around his windows, and he shot himself in his car. And so you think about the consequence of words. Proverbs 18:21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." But in contrast to that, Ephesians 4:29 says, "Let no corrupt word proceed out of your mouth, but what is good for necessary edification, that it may impart grace to the hearer." So what we say is absolutely important. What you say to your spouse, what you say to your children and friends, absolutely matters. Verse 18, it says, "If men contend with each other, and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist, and he does not die, but is confined to his bed, if he rises again and walks about outside with his staff, then he who strikes him shall be acquitted. He shall only pay for the loss of time and shall provide for him to be thoroughly healed." So you can imagine what this would do if you're just like, "Oh, this guy's really frustrating me. But if I take him out, and if he's out of work for 2 days, I'm going to have to pay for it." And then you would rethink it. It's just pretty basic. Verse 20, it says, "If a man beats his male or female servant with a rod so that he dies under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Notwithstanding, if he remains alive a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his property." So if a man is abusing his slave, he'd be punished for it. In other cultures, they could kill on demand. In Rome, you could take your slave and just kill him for no reason at all. Cleopatra was a connoisseur of poisons, and what she did was she killed 275 people as they were testing her poisons, and with no consequence. So the Lord is, when he's giving this, there's instruction to get away from brutality. Verse 22, it says, if men fight and hurt a woman with child, so that she gives birth prematurely, yet no harm follows, he shall surely be punished accordingly as the woman's husband imposes on him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. But if any harm follows, then you shall give life for life, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for a hand, foot for a foot, burn for a burn, wound for a wound, stripe for stripe. Now, it's important for us to see here that we are an excessive people, right? We'll say, you knock my tooth out, I'm going to knock your teeth out. You poke my eye out, I'm going to poke both your eyes out. And that's kind of where we're at. And so what we see, and that's kind of our human nature, because if somebody punches you, you're not going to think, oh, this is fair, and you're just going to exchange one punch at a time. We are an excessive people. And so here we see this restraint, because the restraint is serving for justice. The idea here is that you're going to pay for the crime that you commit. A life for a life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So in this, we see this restraint. So the idea is it's not revenge, it's justice. And isn't this something that we struggle with within our own hearts? When we see children abused, we see humans or Christians abused. In my mind, I think horrible thoughts. I think revenge thoughts. And that's, I think of David and his imprecatory prayers when he would just be like, Lord, go get them, go bash their teeth in. And I mean, it's kind of like, feels good saying that. Lord, just go get them. But yet Jesus tells us to love our enemies, to do good to those that persecute us. And that is just so not within our human nature. That is a supernatural perspective. That is a supernatural response to ungodly offenses. And here, what God is doing is he's setting up this idea that, the punishment's going to fit the crime. In verse 26, it says, if a man strikes the eye of his male or female servant and destroys it, he shall let him go free for the sake of his eye. Okay, so personally, I think, I'll hold out. I will try not to provoke my boss, my master, to preserve my eyes. Now, the next one, I'd be okay with. And if he knocks out the tooth of his male or female servant, he shall let him go free for the sake of his tooth. So I would probably set up some type of protection here and just kind of present my teeth to be set free, personally. But what we see here is God's interest into the details of all these conflicts within civilization, within the children of Israel. He's so concerned about the servant's tooth. I mean, this is God speaking, and he's concerned about the servant's tooth, which we know, based on Luke 12:7, that Jesus is all into every detail of who we are. But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Do not fear, therefore. You are of more value than many sparrows. So, when you brush your hair and you have hair left in there, I wonder if, you're looking at it, and if you got it in a microscope and it would say, oh, this hair is 384. This one next to it's 1,028. Like every hair, the detail of it. And that's like, God is so into the details, the fine things in our lives. It's fascinating. In verse 28, so he's talking about fighting, basically, from 22 to 27, quarrels against each other. And then he gets into animal laws. Just as we have free range laws that if you are driving in a free range area and you hit a cow, somebody's cow, they are not responsible for the damage that's done to your vehicle. Verse 28, it says, if an ox gores a man or a woman to death, then the ox shall surely be stoned, and its flesh shall not be eaten, but the owner of the ox shall be acquitted. So he's holding the owner responsible. This is about responsibility of your possessions. That we are to be responsible with our possessions, but if the animal causes the issue, the animal is going to die. Oftentimes when a dog ends up biting someone, that dog has to be put to sleep, has to be killed. But it says that the owner of the ox shall be acquitted. Verse 29, but if the ox tended to thrust with its horn in times past, and it has been made known to his owner, and he has not kept it confined, so that it has killed a man or woman, the ox shall be stoned, and its owner shall be put to death. So if you know that your animal has a tendency to do this, and you don't do anything about it, then your animal's going to die and you're going to die. Verse 30, if there is imposed on him a sum of money, then he shall pay to redeem his life whatever is imposed on him, whether it has gored a son or gored a daughter, according to this judgment, it shall be done to him. The goring is the horn impaling the person. Kind of gross. Verse 32, if the ox gores a male or female servant, he shall give to their master 30 shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. Verse 33, and if a man opens a pit, or if a man digs a pit and does not cover it, and an ox or a donkey falls in it, the owner of the pit shall make it good. He shall give money to their owner, but the dead animal shall be his. If one man's ox hurts another's, so that it dies, then they shall sell the live ox and divide the money from it. And the dead ox shall also, they shall also divide. Or if it was known that the ox tended to thrust in past time, and its owner has not kept it confined, he shall surely pay ox for ox, and the dead animal shall be his own. The Lord's getting into the nitty-gritty of farming and living next to each other and being responsible for possessions and actions. That's the summary here, is being responsible. Verse 20, or now it's chapter 22, verse 1. It says, if a man steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. So there's 2 principles that are represented here. There's the principle of restitution. Restitution, meaning that you're going to pay back what you owe, actually is liberating for the person. As New Testament Christians, sometimes people really have a difficult time with accepting grace because they're not able to give restitution for the things that they've done wrong. It's like, I want to pay for my sin. And I want to, it's because we're so used to the judicial system, you do the crime, you do the time. But not by show of hands, but how many in here probably should have been incarcerated, but you just never got caught, right? And so the person that got caught when they come out, they're like, I did my time, I'm free to move on. But the person that just never got caught, but you got caught by the Holy Spirit, you got the conviction, you repented, and so now the enemy starts playing with your head, and you're just like, oh, I need to do penance. I need to do things to make right my wrongs, versus that's what Jesus did. That Jesus did everything that we could possibly do to pay for the debt of our sin. But here, this is all about restitution because it's freedom from guilt. Jesus is our restitution. Jesus is the one that paid our debt. And that's God's grace. And then there's this whole idea of the principle of deterrence, because we see the principle of restitution. If a man steals an ox or a sheep, that you have to go and make it right. But also, it's quite the extreme offense. That if you do something to one, you have to pay back 5 for an ox. That would financially possibly destroy someone. So that is the principle of deterrence. That is why the Lord is bringing in such drastic consequences, because there's the value of an ox would be like today a tractor. And so if somebody stole your tractor and dismantled it and sold it for parts, then you'd have to go and buy whoever you stole it from 5 tractors. I don't know, how much does a tractor cost, a good tractor? $60? $60,000? Oh, wow. Imagine having to buy 5 of those. $60,000, wow. I have a snow shovel. I think it was like $25. Now, but the whole idea here is God is setting up, like, don't do it. It's not worth it. California has in law that the police and the prosecutors will not prosecute any theft of $950 or less. So you could go into the store, gather up $950 worth of goods, and walk out, and you will not be prosecuted. There's no deterrent. Imagine if our whole judicial system just followed these guidelines. Verse 2, it says, if the thief is found breaking in and he is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. So here we see this inalienable right for self-defense. And yet they're trying to take it away. And yet it's part of God's plan. We have the right to life. Thou shalt not murder. That is an inalienable right to live. But verse 3 tells us that the thief in verse 2 broke in at night, because verse 3 says, if the sun has risen on him, there shall be guilt for his bloodshed. He should make full restitution. If he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the theft is certainly found alive in his hand, whether it is an ox or donkey or sheep, he shall restore double. That's a big hand, if the ox is found in his hand. Well, but the whole idea here is that if the thief is caught and he hasn't killed or sold it yet, then he could still pay for it. But if not, he has to pay double. In verse 5, it says, if a man causes a field or vineyard to be grazed and lets loose his animal and it feeds in another man's field, he shall make restitution for the best, from the best of his own field and the best of his own vineyard.
This has been Renewing Faith Radio with Pastor Jason Gold. We're in Exodus. This book is full of tense interactions between Moses and Pharaoh. It's chock full of plagues, signs, and miracles. God was showing himself mighty in the book of Exodus. He brought about multiple plagues, refuting all the Egyptian gods and their so-called powers. He parted the Red Sea in a miraculous feat of nature, all for the help and rescue of his people. He even led them by day with a massive cloud and a pillar of fire by night. How amazing and wonderful it would have been to see those signs and wonders. Yet, Despite these amazing and awe-inspiring events, the Israelites were quick to forget all God had done and how He had come through for them. This is human nature, isn't it? As soon as God shows Himself faithful, you're worried about the next thing. Oh, ye of little faith, right? What are you wrestling with today? Where are you seeing God come through for you? And are you willing to believe that He'll be there for you in the next trial? These are all good things to ponder as we go through the book of Exodus. If you're interested in hearing additional teachings in Exodus or any other book, we have those for you at renewingfaithradio.com. For any questions about this ministry, you can get them answered by reaching out to us at 208-557-9673. That's 208-557-WORD. Thanks for listening to this edition of Renewing Faith Radio.